Hello, this is Statler Smith. You are watching one installment of a weekly series where I write an essay about something that's on my mind, record myself speaking that essay, and then upload that video to YouTube. For reasons set forth in the initial video in this series, this is a practice for myself. As such, this video will likely not be entertaining or particularly educational. Perhaps one day I will have value to add to others, but in the words of Aragorn, King of Gondor, it is not this day. If you choose to keep watching, feel free to give feedback on the clarity of thought and speech, as that is what I am trying to improve. Please let me know if you have undergone a similar journey or have tips to share. And who knows, maybe I will eventually add more video editing. With that, let's get into this week's essay.
Last week, I wrote about how we are bombarded with a deluge of ideas on a daily basis. Social media, in pretty much any form, is essentially an exchange of ideas. Some are educational, some are entertaining, and some are inspiring. What does your algorithm show you? If you're watching this, your algorithm probably shows you pretty boring videos. I listen to podcasts that are filled with ideas that can change lives. Diet and exercise ideas, professional growth ideas, personal relationship ideas, personal improvement ideas, etc. Too many to write here. However, even though those are powerful ideas, I need to have space to actually implement them. Even then, ideas that seem powerful might not impact my life with the power promoted in the podcast. After writing the essay about getting started implementing ideas, I realized I had not considered how to evaluate which idea to start with. I only briefly mentioned picking good ideas from bad, but that's it. I think this topic deserves a bit more consideration, and that's why I'm writing this essay. So in my foray into the world of ideas that can change your life, here are a few things I've learned. Ideas classified as entertainment are interesting and fun, but the nutritional equivalent of popcorn. Fun to eat, and that's about it. Ideas that classified as educational can also be interesting, but if it's not relevant to your situation, it's a distraction. These are like palm trees. Not every climate can grow them, and you shouldn't try to grow them in every climate. Ideas classified as inspiring can also be empty if they don't give solid advice for actually improving. With this conception of ideas, I'm still bombarded with more ideas than I can count. Every time I open up a social media app or a website, even suggested videos on YouTube communicate an idea that I can then watch or ignore. And with how many videos I scroll past, that's a lot of ideas. As a first filter for identifying the ideas I can implement, the concept of agency is foundational here. The idea to take charge, take control of what you can. Then as you focus on what you can control, you start to realize you have a little bit more capacity than you thought. If we're identifying an idea that we want to implement in our lives, the first filter is whether or not that idea can be acted on. If the idea is tax the rich, or conversely give tax breaks to the rich, that's not something I can readily translate into action that will change my life, right? The first filter helps to limit those types of ideas from staying in my head for too long. I still hold some space for them because they're interesting conversation topics, but that's it. They don't have much other substance in my life. I'm sure there are others' lives where that particular idea has more substance and it can translate into action. In mine, it doesn't. Now, returning to the concept of ideas as seeds, a seed that passes this first test is like the seed of a fruit-bearing plant. It's an idea that can bring you more fruit as you plant and work on it. If it's not a fruit-bearing plant, I'm cautious about letting that seed take up too much space in the garden of my head. Ideas that pass this filter do include ideas that change how I understand the world or a person, which then change how I treat that person or behave in the world. Knowledge that then modifies my behavior. Let's take the idea of love languages from, I think it's Gary Chapman. The idea of love languages. On first glance, it's just pure knowledge. When I read that book, it's just knowledge transfer. Knowing what the love languages are is just information, not directly actionable. However, I can take that information, apply it to my relationship, and then it becomes actionable. I can start thinking about ways that I can focus on my wife's love language to improve our relationship. Ideas that can just transfer knowledge can still pass this test, as long as that greater knowledge reliably leads to an action that I can take. In a nutshell, the first filter is based on whether or not the idea can be acted on. If the ideas can be translated to action and have some result, it passes my first test. This filters out a lot of the entertaining or enraging ideas that are prevalent across the social media websites. The second test is whether or not I want the results from that action. Are the promised results relevant to my life? Do I want shinier, fuller hair or more luscious lips? Do I want to blast that postpartum belly fat? In the self-improvement space, do I care if instructional designers thrive remotely? Do I want to prevent my micromanaging boss from ruining my life, even when I don't really have a micromanaging boss? Do I care about asset protection when I currently don't own anything more valuable than $15,000? These last three have all been examples taken directly from my LinkedIn feed. If the results aren't relevant to my life, it's like trying to grow an orange tree in Alaska. You can make it work. You can put a greenhouse there. You can ship all the stuff over. You can make sure that there's enough sunlight. You can give it vitamin D supplements, probably. There are ways to make it work, but is it worth it? You want to have an idea that fits your life. You don't want to change everything about your life just to fit one idea. If the promised results aren't relevant to my life or the life I want to build without too much stretching, the idea doesn't pass the second test. Now, the third test is to see if those results have actually materialized in the lives of people who have taken that action. Did they change something in their lives, and did it work the way they wanted it to? Did they get abs in 60 days? Did they go from $5,000 a month to $50,000 a month? Did their marriage relationship actually improve? Essentially, I check the testimonials. This also includes kind of the too good to be true test. If there's a sufficient amount of valid testimonials, I am convinced that it's not too good to be true, and that it could happen with me as well. Other people have done it. Why not me? With this, the idea passes the third test. At this point, the ideas remaining are those that can be acted on. The promised results are relevant to my life. I have evidence that the promised results are viable, that the promise is mapped to reality. We're left with ideas that can be planted, and we have assurance that they will bear some fruit. This is our population of seeds that make sense to plant. But even with these filters, we end up with more seeds than we could possibly plant. The deluge of ideas and concepts that could improve our life from social media is still overwhelming. And though the final filter is supposed to filter out liars, sometimes evidence can be faked. Deciding which seed to plant from the remaining selection is still a Herculean task. This requires prioritizing. Some of the ideas, some of the seeds are similar. They relate to similar ideas and can be grouped or categorized together. So we have a physical fitness section, a financial health section, a relationship health section. Sometimes the ideas themselves are basically just the categories. Be healthy, have a good relationship, be aware of your financial health. I identify these categories and then order the ideas within the groups by those with the strongest relevance and the most solid evidence. This is something that I think we all do unconsciously. Trust your instincts when it comes to your own life. I trust my instincts when it comes to mine. Some of the ideas will take in your soil and others won't. So after all this, we actually plant the seed. We work on the idea. We give it a chance to bear fruit in our lives. I covered this in my essay last week, so I won't repeat myself here. To recap this essay, my framework for identifying ideas to spend time with is pretty much a set of filters. The first filter is if an idea can be acted on. The second filter is if the action will provide relevant results. And the third filter is to check the testimonials. After filtering these ideas, I categorize the ideas into overall groups, pick the most relevant, and then work with those ideas. The last two essays have been interesting. They've helped me take a look at how I interact with the posts on LinkedIn, the posts on YouTube, the other social media apps that I don't actually use that much. But it's helped me to identify my own internal prioritization and evaluate more ideas that come my way. Especially with AI coming up, there's a lot of ideas, a lot of concepts that will be thrown to us, and if we can't think critically about them, we will lose our ability to think critically and believe whatever people say, and our hard-earned dollars will show. So think carefully about the ideas that you actually want to implement, the ideas that you want to spend time and energy with, and you'll do well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.